wounds, woundedness. We're in the midst of Easter. It's still technically Easter. We're in the octave. We're celebrating Jesus Christ, King of the universe, who's opened the kingdom of heaven to all believers. He's visiting the apostles, and he comes to us wounded. He comes to us with holes in his hand, a hole in his side, and presumably holes in his feet. Now, this Sunday in the church is called Divine Mercy Sunday, when we celebrate that God gives us mercy constantly, that we are here in this moment, in this church, gathered together because of that very mercy. And yet Jesus shows up with his wounds still intact. Why would a God who is so merciful, who is so loving, who adores his only begotten Son, bring him back seemingly incomplete? Why would he bring him back still wounded? You know, they say time heals all wounds. And I may not be a great advocate for this position because I'm 33. I'm still a relatively young man. But it seems that there are some wounds, some tragedies we go through in this life that stay with us. There are events that we go through that it seems many years later when something similar comes up, the wound is still there. It stings a little less, but the wound is still present. Now, like I said, I'm a relatively young man, only 33, but I've lived a little life in those 33 years. And I have at least one of those kinds of wounds. I just moved to New Orleans to start a graduate program at Loyola. And right after I moved there, less than 2 months, and I was new, a little lonely, hadn't really met many people, moved there by myself, no roommate or anything. And one of my friends back home, back where I lived, passed away suddenly. And it was so much worse because he'd taken his own life, which leaves you with all sorts of wounds. Why did that happen? Why would God let that happen? Why didn't it happen to me? What could I have done different? How did I fail him? Why am I so wounded? And I didn't have a good day that day. I made it to a 9 p.m. daily mass, and I was holding up pretty good. I was doing all right, and then we got to the words that we used to say, only say the word, and I shall be healed. And I wondered if my friend had heard those words and knew them. I wondered if I could hear those words in that moment and hear them, and I couldn't. And I began to sob, and I've lost some weight since then, but I'm still a big guy, so I was this big, heaving mess of crying and ugliness. And I began to sob, an ugly sob. And this sagacious and holy sister, Sister Regina Marie, we call her SRM, Ursuline nun, came and sat next to me and put her arm around me. Didn't ask me what was wrong, didn't tell me that it was going to be all right, but sat with me in that ugly moment, not trying to heal my wounds, but just sitting with me. Now, some wounds don't heal like we want. They don't heal up. They don't just become forgotten. They don't just disappear. And it took a lot of praying. I prayed so much about that event in my life, and it overwhelmed me. And I prayed prayers I dare not repeat aloud in this church. Prayers of anger and spite, confusion, hatred. Prayers of extreme doubt, because I was so wounded. But if you devote yourself to the prayers, like it says in Acts, and to the communal life, God will drop you a little something when you need it. And I was in Mass and I heard a certain line from Psalm 51. My offering, O God, is a broken spirit, You will not spurn a contrite and humble heart. My offering, O God, is a broken spirit. That's all I got today. That's all I have to share with you, God, is a broken spirit. And God looks at that and says, that's enough. That's more than enough. Thank you. Thank you for giving me that. And we devote ourselves to the breaking of the bread, and we see our own broken Lord and our own brokenness on that altar every Sunday, and we share it with each other in the communal life, in a life lived together. Because God doesn't want us to be broken. He doesn't hope that we are hurt or that we suffer. But He gives us one another so that when we do, we can get through, so that later when we have made it through our tragedy, maybe our wounds aren't healed, maybe they still sting, but we can share in someone's brokenness in a way that we couldn't have before. I was a campus minister for 4 years. I had a lot of students who would come to me with a lot of really, really heavy things. And that woundedness I had experienced had not dissipated. It changed. And what it made for was a heart that was more open and more compassionate to a broken world that needed a little bit of love. See, God doesn't seek our tragedy. He doesn't seek our suffering, but He is so merciful that He even uses that to bring about His mercy. He even uses our most broken moments to shine through so that we can be mercy for one another. So when Jesus comes back wounded, when He comes back still carrying those, it becomes an entry point of faith. It becomes a place where Thomas can literally and figuratively enter into an intimate relationship with Jesus Christ, and we are offered that same reality every time we gather in this place. We put our brokenness on the altar and share with one another our woundedness and the mercy of God. By His wounds, we were healed. By our wounds, His mercy can be revealed. Amen? Amen. Amen.